Have you ever sliced into a steak only to realize it's way overcooked, or pulled out chicken that's dry or underdone? It's happened to me a few times. Cooking meat in an air fryer can be tricky, but Typhur Sync Air Fryer comes with a wireless probe that syncs directly to the unit. There's no extra apps or gadgets needed. And yes, it's PFAS-free. Hey everyone, I'm Meme and welcome back to my channel. If you enjoy honest hands-on appliance reviews, like this video, hit subscribe so you don't miss the next one. A big thank you to Typhur for sending this over in exchange for an unbiased review. For this video, I'm going to be testing how versatile this air fryer is, as well as the wireless probe setting, and by the end we'll find out if this air fryer actually makes cooking easier, more versatile and stress-free. So let's get into it. First up, let's talk about the design. We have the 8-quarter ceramic PFAS-free basket and crisper tray, which have a nano ceramic coating. The tray has 4 silicone tabs to prevent it from scratching the basket, and the hook in the middle makes it easy to grab. Here we have the wireless probe with its magnetic case, and this stores right on the unit. Before plugging it in, I'll give you a quick 360-degree view of this square design. It's sleek, different from most air fryers, and easy to move around the counter with a front grip rather than on the sides. Now onto the big, bright, top-down display panel. There are 6 cooking functions on the panel: air fry, roast, bake, dehydrate, reheat, and a dedicated preheat. There are also 3 more cooking functions that you can access in the Typhur app. Remove the probe for the probe settings to light up, but here's a quick tip. If you don't see the probe settings light up on the screen, it's because the probe needs to be charged and have enough battery to pair automatically to the air fryer. Once charged, it should have 50 hours of battery life. So while that's charging, here's a quick rundown on the specs. This 1750 watt air fryer weighs about 14 pounds, stands just over 13 inches tall, including the probe height. I'm seeing around 16 inches in depth, including the handle at eye level here, and around 12 inches wide. These are my rough estimates, and the cord length is 42 inches. My first test are French fries, adding them to the basket in a single layer. I then used the app to access the fries function, setting the temperature to 450 degrees Fahrenheit for 15 minutes. You do need to press start on the unit itself. You can't remote start in the app. There's no turn reminder, so I made sure to shake the fries halfway through. In the end, they were golden brown, crispy, and not dry at all. I did, however, notice a tiny hot spot on the right side, but nothing major. Quick tip I picked up after using so many air fryers: frozen food gets crispier at a higher temperature because it pushes the moisture out fast. This one hits 450 degrees Fahrenheit. How hot does yours go? I used the reheat setting on 320 degrees Fahrenheit for 4 minutes for some leftover samosas from the fridge, and these were piping hot. In fact, 3 minutes would have sufficed. I do freeze leftover pizza and reheated these straight from the freezer on 315 degrees Fahrenheit for 6 minutes, allowing them to heat all the way through without burning the cheese, and these were spot on. Next up, chicken skewers. I preheated the unit first for 4 minutes. Once the unit was hot, I sprayed the basket and placed in my skewers. I can fit in 6 skewers comfortably. I set these on air fry mode at 380 degrees Fahrenheit for 15 minutes, flipping them halfway. I checked on them with 3 minutes remaining, and I'm glad I did because they were cooked to perfection. Any longer and they would have likely dried out. And before we move on, let me show you a close-up of the probe, which I forgot to do earlier. There's a very faint line around it here, and this is the safety notch. You can barely see it, and that little line needs to go all the way into the thickest part of the breast. I really wish they made that notch darker or added a black band around it, because you can barely see it. The probe itself is ceramic and dishwasher safe, which is nice, and it also has 5 built-in sensors to measure accuracy. So there is actually a whole chicken setting that you can use by pressing the preset button for about 3 seconds, and that's when the whole chicken option will light up. And just a heads up, I will be doing a second video just for the smart whole chicken mode. I'm just waiting for Typhur to update some settings, so I couldn't include it in this video, so do make sure to subscribe so you don't miss that. Now for chicken breasts. So remember when I said earlier, make sure the probe is charged? Well, if you're like me and you like to unplug your air fryer when you're not using it, then the battery on the probe will drain. So the next day when making dinner, I did have to wait 30 minutes while it charged. Once charged, I was able to access the probe settings by pressing the preset, then selecting the type of protein. For beef, you can set the doneness level from rare to well done. For chicken, it will always set to well done. You can also change the cooking function setting to either air fry, roast or bake. Unfortunately, there is no preheat time built in, so you can either let the unit run empty for 5 minutes, or you can go back to the air fryer setting and run the preheat setting for 5 minutes, which is what I did at 400 degrees Fahrenheit, unless you prefer to skip preheating. Once the unit was hot, I set the probe setting to chicken and inserted the probe into the thickest part of the chicken breast, sprayed the basket with oil, and I could fit 5 chicken breasts into this big 8/4 basket. Since there is no turn reminder, once it reached 120 degrees Fahrenheit, I did flip the chicken. Once it reached the target temperature of 165 degrees Fahrenheit, the air fryer stopped cooking, but you can see that the chicken temperature is still rising while it's resting, because it's still cooking internally. So the probe times it perfectly and knows exactly when to stop cooking, so you don't overcook or dry out your chicken. And take a look at that beautiful sear on the outside and slicing through, juicy, tender and perfectly cooked. No pink at all. For my veggies, I washed, dried and seasoned them and then cooked them on the roast setting at 390 degrees Fahrenheit and left the time at 14 minutes. My broccoli was done at the 14-minute mark, but I left the potatoes and mushrooms in for another 5 to 7 minutes so they can soften all the way, and they also turned out great. To test the bake setting, I made some baked potatoes. Being from England, I still prefer to call them jacket potatoes. My boys, however, are fans of spud bros, so they like to call them spuds. I just poked them all over using a knife, then coated them in oil, salt and pepper, and cooked them on bake mode at 350 degrees Fahrenheit. Because I went to go work on editing my videos, I didn't want to forget that they were cooking, so I set the time for 30 minutes first so that the air fryer turns off at the end. Then I came back to turn them over, and then using the same settings, cook them again for 15 minutes. Now, this is an extra step I like to take, and that is to add another 5 minutes on air fry mode at 450 degrees Fahrenheit, just to make the skin that little bit more crispy. And this works amazing. When you cut into the potato, not only will it be steaming hot with a crispy skin, but the inside will be so soft and fluffy and moist. If you nuke this in the microwave, it actually dries out the potato. So seriously, next time skip the microwave and just cook it entirely in the air fryer and you won't be disappointed. Cleaning the basket and tray is really easy. I remove any stuck-on bits first, add hot water with some Dawn dish soap and scrub with a bristle brush. I like to keep a strainer handy for tiny food pieces because I don't like throwing them down my drain. The basket and tray are dishwasher safe, but I usually just wash everything by hand. If you do have stubborn food, you can soak it for 10 to 15 minutes in hot water and it comes right off. So far, I'm impressed with the performance of this air fryer. The wireless probe actually did what it's supposed to do, and I love that there are no wires to deal with. It takes the stress out of cooking because you can just set it and the unit will stop cooking once it reaches target temperature. The unit is pretty quiet, and I like that it auto pauses and resumes when you open and close the basket. Just some personal preferences of mine. I wish there was a window. I am not a fan of the top-down panel because it just becomes a dust magnet, and I prefer to have the preheat built in with the cooking setting with an option to turn it off instead of it being a dedicated setting. But these are just my little quirks. I'm hoping the whole chicken mode works just as well, and like I said earlier, I'll test that in a separate video. I'd love to hear your thoughts on how you think this performed, so please comment below. I read and reply to each comment. If you've been hearing all those stories about toxic air fryers and want a safer, more versatile option, one that even comes with a wireless probe to take the guesswork out of cooking, this one is worth checking out. I've linked it in the description, and Typhur has given me a 10% discount code to share with you guys, and if you get it during the Black Friday sale, you can save an extra 10%, so don't miss it. Alright guys, thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to give this video a like and hype it in the first 7 days of its release, and make sure to subscribe so you don't miss my next review.